And welcome, folks, to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Pastor David. And, folks, we got a great conversation today. We're going to talk a little bit about the budget and also the primary elections in Dalton, Illinois. The super mayor, Tiffany Hendry, is out, and Jason House is in. And also, we're going to do a follow-up on Stacey Abrams down in Georgia. So, folks, y'all come on in and check it out. Welcome to the new Let the Truth Be Told. Thank you. Y'all come on in. Folks, first, giving honor to God. Thank you. First, let me give all praises to God and my Lord and Savior, Yahshua, for making it possible to be here. And thank you, folks, for tuning in. And welcome to all our old listeners, new listeners. Welcome to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. Folks, today we got a great conversation. We're going to discuss several things. We're going to discuss the budget that got passed, and we're going to discuss Tiffany Hendry of Dalton, Illinois, has been thrown out of office. She was defeated by Jason House yesterday. We're going to talk about that. Also, we're going to follow up with Stacey Abrams. So with no further ado, let me bring my co-host in. Hey, Doc, good afternoon. How you doing?
Hey, good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
Good. Listen, now, we're going to talk a little bit about that budget that we were discussing earlier. Talk a little bit about it, and I'm going to cue something up where people can really understand how our budget operates.
Yes. So currently we've got in the Senate where it started, and usually it starts in the House. So the Senate did a draft, and now it's back in the House, and the House is actually passing it. This particular piece of legislation, this continuing resolution, what they would like to call it, is what we're going to use to set our budget for the 2025-2026 fiscal year for our government. But this one is actually looking at the post office and Social Security. My concern with this continuing resolution is by 2034, we will be $54 trillion in debt. Now, there's a lot of discussion about debt, right? So, unfortunately, the debt ceiling is going to be raised. My concern is that's just a projection, right? It could be higher than 54 trillion. This is the reason why Rand Paul voted against it. So if anybody's wondering why he was the one dissenting voice in the room, it's because he saw that increase in our deficit and said, absolutely not. And so I think this is something that's going to go back and forth before it gets to the president's desk. Of course, they want to see President Trump be successful, but with everything that he's doing to save the taxpayer and the citizens of this country fiscally, we may see a change to that overall continuing resolution.
Well, that's one of the things that we talk about here at Let the Truth Be Told is a lot of people do not understand how the budget works, how it comes to be and so forth. So I'm going to play a little clip so folks can get a good idea of how a budget works. Okay, hang on.
Right.
Dollars in the economy. So where does all that money go? Federal spending can be divided into 3 slices. Mandatory spending is the biggest slice. It includes Social Security, Medicare, which is health insurance for the elderly, Medicaid, health insurance for the poor, and other benefits. In 2022, mandatory spending comprised nearly 2/3 of the budget. When it comes to these programs, Congress sets the rules: how Social Security benefits are calculated, who is eligible for Medicare, how much doctors and hospitals are paid for services, and then the government pays the bills. This spending is called mandatory because the government must pay for the benefits for anyone who qualifies. No further approval of Congress is needed. They are sometimes known as entitlements because those eligible for benefits are entitled to them. The second slice is discretionary spending. In this slice, Congress decides annually how much to spend and on what. Things like salaries for government employees, electricity for the national parks, foreign aid, missiles and tanks for the military. Discretionary spending was roughly 25% of federal spending in 2022. You sometimes hear complaints about how much taxpayer money goes to foreign aid. Even with the large increase in foreign aid to Ukraine in recent years, total foreign aid accounts for less than 2% of all federal spending. And what about all those bureaucrats? Salaries and benefits for all federal employees, including the military, accounted for only about 10% of all federal spending in 2022. The third slice is interest payments on the federal debt, about 8% of all spending in 2022. So where does the government get all this money? From taxes and from borrowing. In 2022, about 75% of spending was financed by taxes and 25% was financed from borrowing. The government collected about $4.9 trillion in taxes in 2022, 54% from individual income taxes, 30% from Social Security and Medicare payroll taxes, and the remaining 16% from corporate and other taxes. Let's put this all in perspective. Federal spending has been reasonably stable at about 21% of GDP for decades. Rising recessions like the Great Recession of 2007-2008, when, for instance, more people claimed unemployment benefits, or during the COVID pandemic, when the government spent heavily to help households and businesses. Federal revenues have been relatively stable at about 17% of GDP, falling in recessions as fewer people are working, so there's less tax revenue. In most years, the government spends more than it takes in, and when the government spends more than it collects in taxes, the difference is known as the deficit. The deficit in 2022 was 5.5% of GDP, a little larger than the average over the past 30 years. To pay for these deficits, the government borrows by selling treasury bonds. The federal debt is all the money the government has borrowed to finance past deficits. You can see that the federal debt has been rising sharply since the Great Recession of 2007-2008, and then again during the pandemic. In our next video, we'll talk about the future of spending, taxes, deficits, and debt.
Wow.
Now.
And that's just a visual. I know people are sitting at home like.
Well, I wanted to just give a small analysis of where our money goes, and I think that was good enough. Where people can see, how the pie is split up. But the entitlements is the biggest part of the spending that government does. And to the American people or patriots across this country, when we can see that, and now that we see that most of it is funneled by individual taxpayers' dollars.
Yes. And that is scary. And the other thing she said, I don't know if this stood out to anybody else, but it stood out to me. It says in 2022. Yes. Well, in 2022, we were in the middle of this pandemic, but she also said whoever the government deems entitled. During that time, Joe Biden actually paroled all of these individuals that came over here illegally. Yes. Then he further made them able to collect Social Security by adding them to the list of those non-documented individuals that would get Social Security, which conflicts with the law on the books from 1996, which stated you cannot give any
Right.
federal aid to anyone foreign to this country. They get, if they have a job like through an HB1 visa and they're coming
Right.
over here and they're working, they're paying taxes, that's fine. But they cannot get any type of federal aid. So, you know, the Democratic Party, they don't get to have an excuse in this. It's like you tried to destroy the country with getting all these individuals here. Now you're going to hear a lot of crying about people, oh, I'm losing my benefits, this and that. When you see an American citizen saying that, I'm like, okay, are you trolling? Because you're not losing your benefits. And if you're driving a BMW, you shouldn't have these benefits. Let's just be clear. Now, there's a video out there, I'm just telling you. Now, with the illegal people that are here getting this funding, they should not be getting it. And it should be immediately rescinded, immediately.
Well, that's the whole thing that has been the crust of this whole situation with the illegals, is the fact that the Democratic Party and the Biden administration and the Harris administration, once they open those borders up, they use the NGOs, they use Catholic Charities, the Red Cross, the Divine Nine. They use those organizations to funnel that money to these illegals because, as you can see, and what the law says is that in order to get these type of entitlements, you have to be a U.S. citizen.
Yeah,
that's just the bottom line. So when Joe Biden robbed the FEMA and took all that money out of FEMA and sent it to New York and to other places to house the illegal aliens, that's all. They broke the law, and it's so clear. And I just don't think how they can continue to think that the American people couldn't see that.
Right.
That we couldn't see it, but because they had the Democratic stronghold for what, 3 or 4 years, they were able to pass all these laws. They were able to put all of these, our taxpayer dollars, into these slush funds and pull the money back out and then use it for other things that they wanted to do, for houses, cars, businesses, you name it. And this Democratic Party has used these different organizations to get rich off of us. You know, I just think it's a shame that if you only make a couple $100,000 a year, then all of a sudden you become a millionaire.
Yeah. And what things we're not talking about are like Act Blue, you know, where James O'Keefe, he uncovered how people were being used, right, and didn't even realize it. Their names and were just being used to funnel millions of dollars through Act Blue. Where was that money coming from? Like I spoke to you about it earlier. It's like, okay, yeah, they spent $20 million on Iraq for Sesame Street. There had to be a congressperson attached to that to approve it. You just don't send money through USAID without somebody saying, hey, I want $20 million for Iraq. Okay, great. Well, what congressperson is standing up and saying this is okay? It has to come from somewhere. People under Congress don't get to just say where the money goes. You know, to their point, they did say, we control the purse. You do. And I'm glad you said that, because I want it used everywhere that, yes, you do control the purse, but it's how you've abused the purse that have citizens concerned.
And when you said that, Doctor, I'm going to play this clip because one of the things that we have been discussing is the fraud, waste, and abuse to the Ukraine. We've been sending them money since 2011. And I got a short clip that'll show where the money was going and how Zelensky and the rest of the crime people were getting paid.
Right.
See, these people,
a corruption scandal that once shook Ukraine's defense establishment has resurfaced, this time with even graver revelations. French authorities now claim the stolen amount is even larger, with lavish real estate purchases in Europe exposing the scale of fraud. A year ago, Ukraine's security service, SBU, accused top defense officials of orchestrating a fraudulent scheme to siphon off nearly $40 million from a state-funded purchase of 100,000 mortar rounds. Ukraine had paid nearly the full amount, yet the munitions never arrived. 5 individuals, including 3 government officials, a defense contractor executive, and a foreign commercial group representative, were implicated. the SBU confirmed that one suspect was caught while attempting to flee. If convicted, those involved face up to 12 years in prison. But the corruption trail extends far beyond Ukraine's borders. French authorities uncovered that the stolen funds financed luxury real estate, including a villa, a vineyard, and multiple land plots worth millions. According to the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, NABU, and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, SAPO, a former executive of Ukraine's state-owned defense conglomerate, Ukroboronprom, orchestrated a multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme, funneling $46 million from state enterprises into foreign accounts under the guise of agent services linked to military sales. At least $13 million was laundered through intermediaries before reaching personal accounts. French authorities have seized the assets, and Ukraine is seeking extradition. NABU, working alongside international law enforcement agencies, is tracing the illicit financial flows to expose the full extent of the corruption. Weighing in on the scandal, Elon Musk, the U.S. head of the Department of Government Efficiency, condemned the Ukrainian government's mishandling of war funds. "This is just the tip of the iceberg," Musk remarked. Fico weighed in with his statement, wherein he lashed out Zelensky again.
President Zelensky actually needs this war. When there is war, there cannot be democratic elections. Zelensky is particularly worried about that. Let us recall in what a favorable situation Winston Churchill lost the 1945 election in Great Britain. When there is a war, it is difficult to investigate where a huge part of the funding given to Ukraine ended up, where an enormous number of arms ended up. When there is a war, Zelensky knows that he has total support of the European Union. I say all this quite openly, as Prime Minister of Slovakia, a country which is bordering Ukraine.
As the pre-trial investigation remains active, Ukrainian anti-corruption agencies vow to hold those responsible accountable. These revelations raise serious concerns about Kiev's wartime financial integrity and Western oversight of billions in foreign aid.
So now, Doc.
Wow, that is.
Now listen to this. This is what we've been talking about to the American people and patriots across this country. Now we're seeing and exactly where the money is going. Because, you know, you and I had discussed this. They've been getting money since 2011.
Yes.
And the Democratic Party has been trying to justify them getting that money because most of the money is coming back to them, Doc. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely money laundering. You know, I want to say when Biden first got back in office, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer paid a visit to Ukraine. Like, what are you doing over there? What are you doing? You know, and then she was in Taiwan. Like, what are you doing? You know, she's making sure that she is heading off and spearheading these things because she was getting money back. Why do you think she's no longer the House minority? She doesn't want to be investigated, but she's going to be investigated. Like, it's too late.
Yeah,
it's too late. You're still in office.
Because they stole money. You know, this whole Ukrainian war was about money. We discussed that. And the American people really didn't have a say about what was going on because just like the narrator said, when this war, money come up lost. Products are not sent. I mean, so with all the money that was sent to the Ukraine, and the American people are over here suffering like hell.
Yeah.
See, that was the big diversion. See, that was what the Democrats had done, and that's what I was trying to get the people to see. There was several hidden things that was put into this whole COVID thing. With the wars, you know, the wars, they came out. They made it seem as though Russia was the enemy of enemies when Ukraine was the one. I would say this. With the corruption that was going on in Ukraine, I would say that America in Ukraine started this war against Russia, because the simple fact that most of these American politicians don't bought land in the Ukraine, the fact of the open ports there, then you turn around and you talk about a prosecutor who was exposing Joe Biden them for money laundering with Burisma and all these other places. Now here it is out in our face. All of that money have been wasted. That was part of the distraction while they launder the money back through the illegals' money, all of the money that they've given to illegals through our entitlement programs, rent programs, housing programs. All of that money has been washed back through and came back through the war.
Yeah, yeah. And also to that, just looking at the stocks that were purchased during that time by members of Congress. So war is good for certain people because of the stocks that they hold, like Halliburton, you know, like
all those defense contractors.
Yes, the big
Black Ops.
Yes. So they're making a lot of money when we're at war. And to your point, it's like, well, where did the money go? I mean, the Pentagon lost $6 billion last year. They failed 7 audits, and they have an $850 billion budget.
Well, and you know what?
Billion people.
Now, and that's the thing too. I talk about it because doing this whole thing with the Biden administration, the coming out party for the gays and the transgenderism was created by Barack Obama. And what he did was he embedded gays into different places within the military, energy department, transportation. I mean, our country was being ran by a bunch of homosexuals who had one thing in mind, was to take much as money as they could take, use our government to do sex change operations, because they just cut out about $8 billion in DEI programs for transgender operations. The whole 9 yards. DEA is only a vehicle that was used by the homosexuals to take money.
Yeah. And that's sad, because there are people that are not involved in the LGBTQIA2 spirit. You know, they do lead an alternative lifestyle, but they are not trying to defraud people. So I just need people to understand that I'm not a proponent of that lifestyle, but I'm just saying not everybody that does that is a criminal. But what Pastor's saying, the people that were positioned.
Yes, they were
definitely
positioned by Barack Obama administration. And that's the point that I'm making, because when he got them positioned, he felt comfortable enough to tell God to go to hell and created the law that the same-sex marriage, but he had already put those people in place. This whole thing was planned well, and COVID was the reason why they were able to bring it and enforce it. And then once that they got in, and the more that they pushed and the more money that they kept hiding under the DEI for the LGBT group and make it seem like this was all about Black people. It never was about Black people. DEI was just a farce. It was a vehicle used to steal money and make Black people think that it was a legitimate program for Black people, Doc.
Yeah. And unfortunately, you know, the LGBTQ plus two spirit, you know, they decided to, I want to say, take over DEI. Do you know what I mean? Because they're the ones that benefited from it. Black people actually suffered from it because we were used as the face of it, but we didn't benefit from it. Just like affirmative action. We were used as the face of it, didn't benefit from it. I'm like, you know what? Get rid of all this stuff and let's go back to a merit-based system. Because when you come back to a merit-based system, then everybody's exposed, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. And that's how it should be, especially with these workers. Wait a minute. You've got people working for the government mad because they have to basically be accountable for what they did over 5 days. And it's like, okay, if you don't respond, you're done. They're upset. You shouldn't be. They're still upset. They're like, oh, we got fired without notice. No, you were told, take the deal.
Exactly.
Or this is not going to go well for you. Take it. And the people that didn't take it, they were like, well, we're just going to go to court. Guess what? Where they're at right now. No money.
They have money. And to our listeners, I want to play this clip about DEI because, see, I hate the fact that the Democrats have used these programs not to assist Black,
No.
but to make it appear
Right.
that they're
Exactly.
assisting Black people with these affirmative actions program, with the
Mhm.
DEI program. And really, Black people are the last people on the totem pole. When you start talking about DEI and affirmative action, they were the worst programs ever put into effect that was supposed to be a basis to help Black people. They were the worst. Affirmative action only allowed you to take 10% of minority participation, and most of the minorities were deemed white women. And so they benefited from it all. But I'm going to play this skip a little bit about DUI for our watchers, our listeners.
The real F around and find out moment is here. A lot of people are looking at the Black community thinking that we are the recipients and benefactors of DEI programs and affirmative action programs. And I know affirmative action is no longer, but whenever they hear the term DEI or they hear the term affirmative action, they look to the Black community thinking that we are the benefactor. Now, here's some information for you. The number one recipient of DEI are white women. That is according to the U.S. Department of Labor. And others fall under that group, under the minority group, the ethnic minority. Number one recipient under that group are Latino and Hispanic Americans. Number two are Asian Americans. Number three are Native Americans. Number four, individuals with disability. Number five, veterans. Okay? And number six, the LGBTQ plus community. And guess who comes last at receiving DEI benefits? Guess who comes last? That's right. Black Americans. Black people. Let me also say, you can do a Google search and you will see the primary benefactors of DEI programs are not only white women, but white men, white male CEOs. Those are the ones who have benefited the most from DEI initiative programs.
Doc, your thoughts?
It's just, again, we're used for everybody else's benefit. It's like they use our plight to benefit off of. I wish we could grift better, but we don't know. It's bad.
Well, a lot of Black Americans do not really understand the programs because they are not fully explained to Black Americans
Right.
when they implement the programs. The politicians are not telling Black folks that they're the last on the list to get jobs,
to even benefit from it. Right? It's like but you see us out here on the street petitioning, giving our voice, bullhorning. Why you get rid of DEI? They want you to fight for it. You're not gonna get it, but they want you to fight for
see,
it.
that is the misconception, and that's why I played that, because Black folks need to understand we have to stop putting our voices behind things that are destructive to our people.
Right.
These programs are destructive to the Black community because they are not an asset. Yeah. It's a smoke screen. Because just like right now, you would have thought that with these DEI programs, that's been going for years, that they would be benefiting the Black community.
Right.
But it hasn't. Black folks, it has benefited everybody else except Black people. But when they come, but see, this is how the Democrats do. When Trump and Elon Musk started looking at how this DEI money was being used and how it was being used especially for the LGBT group, because they were benefiting from Jump Street. Most of the white women, they got all the major contracts, but they created contracts in DEI that went specifically to the LGBT group, Doc. And they created those contracts as sole source contracts. These contracts were not bidded out. Anything over $3 million needs to be bidded out.
Yes.
Because at $3 million, if you're in the 8A program, which is another program, a DEI program called 8A that minority contractors can get into, and by homosexuals being deemed in DEI,
a protected class.
they were a protected class, and they were able to get up to $3 million without competition.
Right. Exactly.
So, just think about, that's why you see these increments, 3 million here, 6 million there. Because
I've seen contracts for people outside of this country. Imagine being in the United States. You're a woman of color like myself, but you won't qualify for it unless you're from Ghana.
Yes.
Or you're from Africa. I live here in the United States, and you're telling me that my tax dollars are going specifically to somebody that I can't even qualify for it. And it's somebody foreign from our country that's getting these grants. And if you don't think I'm telling the truth, just Google it. Okay.
Yes, and you're spot on, because that's what I'm trying to get the American people and patriots across this country, especially Black Americans, to see. When you watch this show, we're coming with receipts for what we're saying, because we want folks to know, whoever watched the show, we want you to know that you can come here, and when we make these type of statements, we can back them up with receipts, so that we need to get our people to understand we need to start researching, and we need to have things explained to us about our taxpayer dollars, why these DEI programs are in effect, that does not help Black Americans at all, but everybody else in the food chain.
Oh,
but
I need all of those programs to end, like the one I just mentioned. Why do we have a grant for people in Ghana and not here in the United States for business?
Exactly.
To start a business.
Well, you know what? Stacey Abrams, we talked about her the other day about what she's been doing. And, now that they found out, and folks, it's coming out, even with the energy department. They've been washing money through the energy department, the EPA, the transportation department. Most of all of these departments under the Joe Biden administration, now you have to think about it, they were mostly LGBT people.
Yes.
Remember the energy department guy that was stealing luggage? Luggage out the airport?
And
go ahead.
Didn't he have access to the new codes?
He had access to the new codes.
It was sad. He was a kleptomaniac. It was like, you're making 6 figures. Why are you stealing other people's luggage? What is going on?
Well, you know what? This was the payback, and this is to the American people and patriots. This was our wake-up call.
Yeah.
I want to say this. God put America through the last 4 years for a reason.
Yes, he did.
And as a pastor, I'm looking from a spiritual eye. We were able to see the enemy. We were able to see where the enemy was at and what they were attempting to do. See, sometimes things can be a blessing in disguise, because when COVID came, we saw who the real enemy was. We saw the fake pastors who shut their doors down for COVID and started giving out the vaccinations. We saw how the school system was when they implemented all the homosexuals into the schools with the kids. They changed the laws, parent laws. All of this thing came under COVID. And to the American people, from a spiritual eye, we were able to see the demonic presence in the White House. Look at it for the past 4 years. Even at the last Super Bowl, when Alicia Keys came out on the field and playing at the mouth of a serpent a piano. I mean, look at all the demonic stuff that the Biden administration put this country in. And just like I spoke so much about here in Chicago, the reason why Chicago is in the mess that it in is because LGBT Lori Lightfoot got Chicago diverted money from programs that would actually help Black people and created DEI and started sending the money to all the LGBT group. Your thoughts, Doc?
Oh, yeah. And then insult to injury, they got Brandon Johnson. And the bad part about it is I remember when he was running and how he said, yeah, we're going to end that and we're going to do better for the especially for Black people. He said these things. I'm just saying. And I was like, great, they've got somebody in there to help. And no sooner than he got in there, he completely just lied to everyone.
Well, yeah, he did. Because
and the people that were there, because those people there were like, hey, we need housing. We need better jobs. We need better this. We need better. I don't have the money for it. And as soon as he got money from the federal government for people coming in illegally,
yes,
then all of a sudden he had the money.
Well, you
closing down the schools. It was crazy. Go ahead.
But Doc, he see, the setup was the setup. When Rahm Emanuel left Chicago, he had set this whole thing into motion. Okay. So when Lori Lightfoot tricked people into thinking that she was going to be about Black people, and I kept telling people her whole concern was about the LGBT group. She had no vision for the Black people, but only to use Black people to get in office. Because Black people now, you can see the trail of what she left, of destruction that she left, and she set Brandon Johnson up for the illegals.
Yes.
Because you'll hear President Trump say, well, I gave more money to Black people than anybody. He did under his leadership because he put money into Chicago that the citizens never saw.
No.
They never saw the money because the Democrats took the money. They changed the name of different programs like the Climate Equitable Jobs Act, diverted funds through there, using people identity for the illegals. This whole thing has been an elaborate scheme against the American people. And from this point on, what President Trump is doing, we need to support it 100% because why would you be a political leader here in the United States and your job is to represent the American people? Your job as a politician is to ensure that our country is ran smoothly, effectively, and to make sure that we don't incur debt, to make sure that we are respected abroad across the country and other places. That is your specific job, is to make sure the American people are taken care of. But we haven't seen that. And what we saw in the last 4 years have been horrendous. Not only had it been evil, but to unleash criminals and mental patients. Y'all know what it is because President Trump is cleaning it up. Your thoughts? I got another clip I want to cue up and about this, Stacey. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, I want somebody to run against Priska. I know you're going to be running for mayor, but we need somebody to run for governor of Illinois and at least start some of the repair for that state because it is in such bad shape. Chicago is just one city out of Cook County, in the state of Illinois. The whole embodiment of Illinois, you guys should not be the poster children for criminal activity. I'm just saying.
Well, you know what, Doc? The problem with Chicago is this, and I have to keep it 100 with you. The problem is the Republican Party here in Chicago. The Republican Party are not really Republicans. They're rhinos. They're Democrats. They switched their parties and became Democrats. Because if the Republican Party, Sean Morrissey, Kathy Salvi, and all of them was serious about making a big dent in the Black community, then they will be much more visible. But when you got Republicans here who are going along with the Democrats, because, at last March when we did the Heritage Foundation investigation into the polling places, we found everything that was illegal, from thumb drives to the printers. I mean, to judges telling people the machines are not working, but here, leave your card and we'll put it through later on. I mean, all the bad things, the illegal things that have cost elections are done here in Chicago. But when we saw those things and we put them out there, it was good because during the presidential elections this past fall, they weren't able to do those things because everybody was watching.
Right.
And so our thought is right now is that we need to be cheering that Elon Musk is finding taxpayer dollars. You would think the Democrats would be too, because that's why they're in office. They're supposed to be working for us, but yet they're protesting and hollering and crying about losing money and what they got on us. Doc, I'm going to cue this up. And we...
Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so just take a look at this clip from the Ingram angle on Fox News.
Mr. Administrator, can you explain what the heck happened here and how another slush fund has been exposed?
So this is $2 billion of that $20 billion that was parked at this bank outside of government towards the end of the Biden administration. Power Forward Communities, which Stacey Abrams is part of, only received $100 in 2023. They then got $2 billion in this grant in 2024. Now, I was just reading over the grant agreement, Laura. On the first page, it gives the organization, this nonprofit, 21 days to distribute $2 billion. But this is the crazy part. I went to page 7 of the grant agreement, and it's giving the entity 90 days to complete a training called How to Develop a Budget. Now, I would say that if an organization needs to take a training on how to develop a budget, one, they should be taking the training before they're spending $1, but they definitely shouldn't be getting $2 billion.
I mean, wow, $2 billion. I still can't wrap my head around that. And then, of course, what exactly was this so-called nonprofit even about? Was it money that was going to the black community, creating jobs and providing value, helping people get ahead in life and rebuilding communities? You know, the people that Stacey Abrams claimed to be fighting for her entire career. Nope, it was an environmental nonprofit. You literally cannot make this stuff up. Since when is Stacey Abrams an expert in the environment and environmental phenomenons? This woman's entire career has been grifting about racial politics, and suddenly she's a leading voice and the head of a massive $2 billion environmental nonprofit? Give me a break. It's obvious what's going on here. The grift is so blatant, mainly because it follows the exact same pattern every single time with these Democrats. There's always a branding misrepresentation. They don't just hand out taxpayer money to their political allies. Of course, that would be stupid. They disguise it under feel-good nonsense, like environmental research and sustainability, equity, community investment, DEI, anti-racism. That way, anybody who questions where the money is actually going instantly gets labeled as anti-science, racist, or, of course, against progress. It's a total joke, and it's the same thing they do when they present bills to the floor. Name the bill something like the Saving the World's Children from Starvation Act, and then, of course, anybody who looks into it, anybody who raises any concerns, any criticism, instantly is labeled as being evil and doesn't care about the kids. And that tactic, frankly, has worked for a very long time. It's been used as a shield for these Democrats. Well, I guess until today, because now we have people like Lee Zeldin coming along and starting to pull up the receipts, looking into this funneling of money. And I guess now moving forward, the grift is completely exposed and up. Does anybody truthfully believe that Stacey Abrams is first of all deserving of this position, but secondly, was doing anything of actual real value with this money? Do we truthfully believe that this $2 billion nonprofit is saving the environment? I mean, come on. It's simply a taxpayer grift. And how exactly does $2 billion go to Stacey Abrams' nonprofit with zero oversight? How has nobody been aware of this for the last however many years that this has been going on? You know what it feels like to me? It feels like a payoff. Stacey Abrams has been the Democrat Party's goon in Georgia for years. She spent every election cycle crying about voter suppression, running sketchy voter registration operations, which some people claim were linked to ballot harvesting operations. A lot of people credit Stacey Abrams' work to being very beneficial to the Democrats and their, let's call it, election endeavors. Stacey Abrams, I guess, scratched their back, and then this feels like they're returning the favor, scratching her back in return. And now actually, here's the best part. Supposedly, this $2 billion in funding for her nonprofit is just the tip of the iceberg. Apparently, there's another $18 billion sitting in that same account, conveniently set up by Biden's team in the final days of his presidency. Very interesting. It's almost as if this moving of money is part of some massive organized slush fund meant to funnel billions of dollars to their political allies just days before Trump took office. It's just unbelievable. And when you're talking about funds of this level being moved to Democrat-linked organizations, there just has to be a good explanation. Otherwise, the only logical assumption, the only conclusion that I'm leaping towards is pure corruption and money funneling to their allies. Of course, always under the guise of some feel-good program that's supposedly providing all kinds of value that the left can never actually quantify or explain. I mean, honestly, this ought to put it into perspective.
$520 million was given for a consultant to do ESG, that's environmental, social, and governance investments in Africa. $520 million, $25 million to promote biodiversity, conservation, and social responsibility behavior in the country of Colombia. $25 million, $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. They have no place in particular they were thinking of. There is no location. The money was sent out, but they have no idea where it's going. $42 million for social and behavior changes in Uganda, and $10 million for Mozambique medical male circumcision. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $486 million to a consortium for elections and political process strengthening, which $22 million was for inclusive participatory political process in Moldova, and $21 million going to my friend, Prime Minister Modi in India, for voter turnout. We're giving $21 million for voter turnout in India. What about us? I want voter turnout too, Governor. $29 million to strengthen the political landscape in Bangladesh. Went to a firm that nobody ever heard of. They got a check. Can you imagine you have a little firm, you get 10,000 here, 10,000 there, and then we get $29 million from the United States government. There are two people working in that firm. Two people. I think they're very happy. They're very rich. They'll be on the cover of a very good business magazine pretty soon. $20 million for fiscal federalism, and $19 million for biodiversity in Nepal, and $47 million also for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia got a lot of money. $50 million plus another $50 million for condoms for Hamas.
All of it sounds amazing, but I wonder who's actually running these programs.
Doc, your thoughts on
Yeah, and it's to his point, who's running the programs. My question is, who was it that approved it?
Yes.
Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's
Yes.
got to be somebody in Congress that's saying, hey, there's an issue here in this area in India, and we want, to give them $20 million for voter turnout. I want to know who that person is in Congress that brought that forth, if it's that person, right? Because I'm thinking, who else can it be? I mean, I couldn't just go and say, hey, Congress, give me $20 million. They'd be like, well, what is it for? But I would still need to go to somebody in Congress because they control the purse, right?
Exactly.
So every line item that people just heard President Trump read off, it all goes back to our Congress approving this before that check gets cut out of the door. That's my issue.
And to the American people and patriots across this country, when the Democrats had the full total House, they were able to put this money, they were able to get these programs funded. Yes. While we was worrying about COVID and we was worrying about the trans stuff. No wonder the trans was all excited about, because they were already set up. The money that's being diverted from our money. That's the sad thing of it is, and we got people sleeping on the streets, but you sending money to Bangladesh. You send $50 million for condoms. $50 million could have wiped out homelessness here in the United States.
Right. But that's not what they want to do. They want to run on the problems.
$2 billion would have fixed every Black community, not only in America, but across the world.
I know, but again, politicians, real ones, they do not want the problem solved, because what are they going to run off of? They don't want to run on success. See, President Trump is the first person that I've ever seen want to run off success. He's like, I want to run off what I've done.
Exactly.
and what I've accomplished and what people can actually see. Yes, you see this, I did this. You see the results of it. Like
Yes.
with the border, for example, he told everybody, when I get in day one, I'm shutting this down. We're at 95% down in crossings. So he's delivering, and he's running on what he's delivering. Where other politicians, they just want to go, yeah, we got this homeless problem.
Exactly.
The homeless problem's worse. You've been talking about it over 20 years. Why is it worse? Why isn't it better? And why do you keep asking me to keep putting you in office to solve it when it's getting worse? Like, there's a problem.
Well, the homeless problem was solved when you brought all the illegal aliens over here and you found houses for them. You found cars. You found money for them. This was all illegal. And this is why I say, Black people, we need to be up in arms, because they brought them here to replace the Black community.
Absolutely.
And that's why they were brought here. So I don't see how Black people could be listening to the Roland Martins or to the WVONs or to any of the Maxine Waters or any of these Black politicians. Black political leaders who have been in office, like here in Chicago, the aldermen who have been in conjunction with Brandon Johnson, all of these Black political leaders need to be removed out of office.
They do.
Because
they
what's
don't
happening?
deserve us.
No, they don't deserve to be into office because they haven't done anything to help the Black community that they represent.
They haven't, but they always come to us, and then they want to berate us. They want to put us down. They don't want to lift anybody up, but they want our vote. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm tired of being abused.
Well,
Seriously, I'm over it.
And this is why I'm running for mayor of Chicago, is because Black folks, we should be tired of the BS.
Yeah.
We should be really tired. I mean, as the mayor of Chicago, it's about the people. It's going to be about rebuilding the Black community, every community in Chicago, but especially the Black community, because it's suffering the most. Black people are suffering with crime. We're suffering with financial illiteracy. Our children are illiterate. They're graduating them. They can't read or write. I mean, look at the Black community. Black people should be looking at our surroundings. I'm not talking about the fake Blacks who say they represent Black people, like in the city council. I'm not talking about the Blacks who live in gated communities, but use an address in Chicago to divert funds to those other places. I'm not talking about them Black people. Those are the Black people that we got to get rid of, because those are the people who are trying to destroy the grassroots Black community.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm telling people, get involved. We have to replace them. We cannot go another election cycle with this type of corruption in Chicago or anywhere else, because downstate Illinois is separating from Chicago. You know that, right?
I didn't know that. Okay. Yes. They're making their stance, or like, enough.
They've already made their stances. And some of the towns that are bordering the Indiana border has already filed for certain things to become part of Indiana.
Really? Okay.
That's where I'm from. They want to fall under the Indiana, leadership, because they don't.
I don't know if they want to do that. They ain't no better. They ain't no better.
But you know what? It just goes to
they
show,
might be a little better.
But what it does, it just goes to show you how things are so contentious here in the state.
Yeah, they want help.
Yeah, that the folks downstate, they don't want to be a part of Chicago, because most of the federal funding is coming to Chicago.
Okay, gotcha.
See what I'm saying? Most of the funding is coming to Chicago from the federal government. And so once it comes through Chicago, downstate is not getting but pennies.
Wow.
After Chicago gets their money. And so they're saying we want to separate so that when we do federal funding, the money can come directly to us, not associating depending on Chicago. And that's why I say the Republican Party here in Chicago is a bunch of crap. They're Democrats posing as Republicans, and to President Trump, Laura Trump, and to the MAGA group, we need to be doing a Doge audit here in Illinois.
Yes.
President Trump.
We have a Doge here in Georgia.
Well, President Trump, I know you're going to watch this, and I know some of your people going to watch it. To the Trump team, We need a Doge here in Illinois, and that's where we're
Yes.
going to find out where our money's at. That's where we're going to find out who the crooks are. It's going to show Trump send Elon Musk here to Illinois and do a Doge, and I guarantee you, then we can get the crooks out of office, find out where the money is at, and then put the money respectively in the communities that need it, besides all this money going to the illegals, Doc.
Yeah, there are definitely 3 states that need Doge: California, Illinois, and New York. Off the top.
Like off the top.
Yes, here in Georgia, we actually have a state Doge that I'm going to look into seeing if I can be a part of that, because I do have a background in compliance and corporate governance. And so I definitely want to, be a part of that team and see what's going on within our state, because Georgia, we are on the map politically with everything that's gone on here. As you mentioned earlier, Stacey Abrams, Brian Kemp, there's always something going on here in the South. And I want, the South to be better. Right now, we just have a lot of contention with the Republican Party. And I do work with Republicans, and I'm working with the Republicans that want to see a better Republican Party, very similar to the Frederick Douglass, founding, principles that the Republican Party was founded on. So,
well, you know what? I know I have some good friends. Kevin McGarry, he's part of the Frederick Douglass Foundation out of California. Some of the guys that I met at the inauguration. But the fact of the matter is this: the Republican Party needs to clean house.
Yes.
Because just like here in Illinois, if the Republican Party was visible, you wouldn't just have to give those 19 electoral votes automatically to the Democrats.
Exactly.
To President Trump team, Black people came out and in this state voted over 47%.
Overwhelmingly, yes.
Republican. But to President Trump, you don't have any real Republicans here in the state of Illinois who are going to get out and take this wave and get into the communities and give alternatives to Black people, because these rhinos are in office, Black people do not have a Republican Party here who they can go to and get with, because they don't want that. The rhinos here are just getting paid to be quiet, to let it go, and whatever the Democrats want to do with the supermajority, they allow them to do that. And that's why you see in so many towns being destroyed under the Democratic leadership. And it only goes to show that whenever Democrats are involved with something, I hope the American people and patriots across this country can see that whenever Democrats are involved with something, it turns to crap.
It's unfortunate, and I just want people to remember, we do have the Redemption Party. We are filed with the FEC. If anyone wants to run in any state around the country with the Redemption Party, they can. We already run the town of Roseland in Indiana, which sits right next door to South Bend. And so we are making a stance as a party, especially at the local level, because that's where the money directly impacts you as a citizen.
And that's the problem, and that we're going to have here in Illinois. And that's why I've been talking to, trying to get in touch with the Trump team about this. Even though if they put money into the state of Illinois, it is going to be choked off by the Democrats in the local elections. Because once here at the local level is where the money is being disseminated at. That's why I was so glad when President Trump froze the federal money here by the sanctuary cities. And now Brandon Johnson is going back trying to find money. He's asking the city council and the governor for money now, just a few days ago, because now he don't have the federal money. They got to come up with some money, because they done stole most of the money, and now they can't come out of their pocket and say, well, we'll just return the money we stole. They're trying to find more money from the state now that the feds have cut that money off. And that's why I say this is a partial Doge for Illinois, because they can go full blown once he gets out there and go before Congress and explain with his receipts why he took federal dollars and invested in illegally to illegal aliens.
Pam Bondi, she gonna find out what's in that closet. She's looking forward to it. She's looking forward to it.
Now, folks, we got a hot story that came out before we get out of here. It's about Dolton, Illinois. Tiffany Henyard, the super mayor, the super stupid idiot mayor. She was much more of an idiot. I don't know, her and Brandon Johnson is in neck to neck for the idiot mayor across the country.
Sad.
But she was removed and voted out the primaries last night by
What?
Trustee House, a friend of mine, and I'm so glad he did.
Wow.
I wanna throw this clip in here because even in this, she's still stupid. Watch the clip.
And the leader in breaking news on all of the Dalton drama. Dane, this sounds like a shocker.
Yeah, Tiffany Henyard didn't just lose tonight. You might call this a political annihilation. Her opponent, Trustee Jason House, getting a 7-1 margin over her tonight. House with 87.9% of the 4,400 votes cast here today. Henyard getting just 12% of the vote. Those numbers came in fast this evening, sparking a huge celebration here at House's campaign headquarters.
Wow.
An explosion of cheers and emotion tonight
they are
as
getting
the
the party
numbers started
on.
coming in, showing Jason House and his slate winning in a landslide. Some people even started dancing. Tonight's election effectively signals the end of the 4-year tumultuous term of Mayor Tiffany Henyard, who garnered national attention for her lavish spending, personal perks, and questionable contracts, all of which are now at the center of an FBI investigation. Now, the past few months in Dalton have been political chaos with canceled meetings, a no-show mayor, even a fist fight at the Thornton Township meeting where Henyard is also the elected supervisor. House telling the crowd tonight that Dalton's nightmare is finally over.
Yes.
He faced 4 years of intimidation, 4 years of failure, and tonight is the new day for the community of Dalton.
We have suffered for 4 years, and now victory.
Yes, yes.
We are claiming victory today is ours.
Henyard is out. We dancing all night, y'all, all night. We so happy.
That's crazy.
Now, we've not been able to track down Tiffany Henyard yet tonight. She was not telling anybody earlier where she was holding her campaign event. She's been laying low. But we did talk to her earlier today as she cast her vote at a nearby school. Here's what she had to say around 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Don't win, what are you going to do?
I might run for something bigger. You never know. We're not going to talk about that till we get the results, but I am confident that I will have a landslide this evening. My residents do love me despite fake news not showing the good that I do in the community, because I do a ton of good, but y'all just painted me as bad news for 4 years.
Yeah, you were bad news because not only were you the mayor, but you were the supervisor of the township. That's a conflict of interest.
And not only
it's definitely the fox watching the hen house, right? And that should have had been dealt with, but because it did not have any rules in place saying that it wasn't a conflict of interest, that's why she was able to get away with so much. That's why I need people to understand, because I know people are kind of like, well, how did she get away with a lot of this stuff? Because there was no oversight over her. You know, she just literally got to do whatever she wanted, and they had to go along with it because she supervised the township along with being the mayor.
Well, she didn't get elected. She
was placed.
She was placed in there out of intimidation that she did when she got to office. I mean,
well, didn't somebody get sick and pass away and she replaced that person? I thought that's what happened.
Well, what happened with Tiffany Henyard, when she was a trustee, she owned some property, and people that lived inside the property, it was Section 8 property. She ended up having somebody die because of the mold ingestion. It was a family there that we helped move and get out as the president of Living and Driving While Black Foundation. We were the first ones to file a lawsuit against her, and we did win for Miss Smith and her family. And we're still waiting for that to be paid because she refused to sign the contract for the insurance. So she was a horrible mayor, horrible. She also was a horrible supervisor because she had a surplus, $3 to $4 million, and now all of that money is gone. Her boyfriend got contracts, all the nepotism. Dalton has a chance now to get himself back on his feet. Doc, your last words before we get out of here.
Yes. So remember, like I always say, when you see all of these things happening, look towards heaven, for your redemption is near. And with that, please check out the USA Redemption Party. We are looking for candidates to be servants of the people and members of our party. So check out usaredemptionparty.com.
Doc, thank you so much, and we gonna keep it going. The platform will be ready soon. I see you getting ready.
Unfiltered vision.
But we're gonna keep it going. God bless you, and we'll talk soon, folks. I want to thank you for tuning in to the show. That's what our job is as journalists. We're supposed to continue to bring information and the truth about what's happening. So these are my last words before I get out of here. First, let me say this. To the American people of patriots across this country, now that we see the truth, we have to act on it. We cannot sit around and continue down this road of despair and destruction. We have to now take this country back with the leadership of President Trump on a local level. I'm urging local people on the local level, people who are not educated. You don't have to be educated to run for office. Get that out of your head. You just have to love your neighborhood. You have to love this country and love the state you live in. That's the reason why we got all these educated fools in political position, is because the local people trusted them. We can no longer trust the Democratic Party. We can no longer sit back and wait for somebody else to do it. Change starts with the man in the mirror. And I'm telling the American people and patriots across this country, especially Black Americans, look into the mirror and ask yourself, are you being all that you can be to make a difference in your life and in the future of your children? God bless you. See y'all tomorrow. Enjoy your evening.